It is an honour and a privilege to be here. To be here today, it does feel a little bit more special for a number of reasons. First is when I was telling my family that I was coming over to Malta, my mum, her eyes lit up straight away. And she told me that I didn't know it was the first place that her and my dad had gone on holiday, the first time they'd ever left Liverpool. And Malta was the first place that they came. And she started to tell stories about Malta. And while she laughed and saying, obviously there's going to be lots of changes and investment in how it looks, and she was trying to describe the places. But one thing that she kept going back to, and I was just thinking about it, and I was just having some conversations here with Max, is the warmth of the people. And that's key for today. Key in high performance sport, which I'm going to refer back to. Another area, in regards to why it's special, I've watched from afar the vision becoming a reality for the Mediterranean College of Sport. I've been fortunate enough to work with Bernice and George. Bernice I've known for a number of years from being a professional doctorate. She's done a great job supporting our elite athletes from a performance lifestyle perspective, and it's great now to see her develop. A little bit about myself. I'm head of elite sport and athlete management at Liverpool John Moores University. So my role is to lead and manage the sports science and performance services for our own dual career athletes, as well as Olympic athletes and professional athletes that access our facility. I'm also the performance lead for the Talented Athlete Scholarship Scheme. So it's known as TAS, the abbreviation. That's a UK funded sport program where they look after athletes from a dual career perspective. And I'm also on the board, which is they guide and performance lifestyle advisors through career pathways as well as education pathways. And I've been focused in this area since returning back from America, where I've done my own student athlete experience. So for the past 18 years, I think it just reminded me last night, I've been focusing in helping student athletes develop from a performance, from a lifestyle, personal growth, and from an education perspective. So the purpose of today is to give you an exclusive insight into the high performance world of dual career with Liverpool John Moores University, as well as the TAS scheme, and also something I'm really excited to be able to share and showcase is the champions of character. And I have a research interest in character and how we can support dual career athletes throughout their journey and beyond. And the case study I'd like to share is for a career development. So I'm excited to show you guys this. It will be the first people I am showing, so I'm intrigued to hear some of your feedback in this area. And I'd like to continue these conversations and have time for some Q&A at the end. We are going to cover some theoretical frameworks. I'm not going to bombard you with the theoretical frameworks, but it's also important that you understand that this is some of the foundations of what informs our dual career programs. But it's my role to bring that to life. I'm going to bring that to life through a storied approach to telling stories, something I enjoy doing. So let's set the scene. We'll set the scene with these two superstars. Niamh Charles, Ellie Fletcher. So to set the scene, dual career, the environments of dual career, these athletes are faced with demands from an academic perspective, from a rigorous training regimes, and constant demands from their sport. And simultaneously, and specifically, they are pursuing the complexities of high-performance sport, education, and personal growth. please don't mislead dual career as a sales pitch, because it's tough. But the benefits are endless. And they reminded me of that, and they said how true it was. Now it's easy for me to say that. It's easy to predict. It's going to be great, it's going to be tough, the benefits are endless. But what we can't predict is how they get to the end. So, they're all going to make in-flight adjustments along the way. Let's look at both of these players. So they arrived at John Moores University, both playing for England. Both then progressed to the England under-21s. Both played for Liverpool under-18s, and then also progressed to the 21s. And before they both left, they also had experience with the first team. Now this is remarkable. Liverpool John Moores University, global leader for sport and exercise science. We recruit some of the best students globally. Neve and Ellie both finished top of their class. Top of their class. So they are playing football and high performance sports at a high level, as well as finishing their academics. So a remarkable achievement. Neve then, beyond dual career, life after John Moores University, has achieved some remarkable successes. She progressed and signed for Chelsea Football Club. She moved to London, big city, big move, only 21 years of age, dealing with the pressures of high performance sport. Certainly a radar on her progression from Liverpool then to Chelsea. And then this is her signing.
I'm Neve Charles, and I'm really happy to have signed a new contract with Chelsea. I've had a really good time so far here and created some great memories, and I'm really excited for the future. I think it's really exciting and to look forward the quality of players we have and what we could potentially achieve. I think it's really special and really exciting. Obviously, it's a privilege to be able to play with these players every day. I think the whole staff and the whole setup is where I want to be to develop, and I think working with them is only going to help that, and the detail that she puts into my game and has developed so far. There's plenty more for me to improve on as well, so I'm really looking forward to doing that. My parents told me when I was younger, I just was on one of them bouncy things and I just started kicking a ball, and they were like, well, what's going on? And I just kept doing it. They took me down to my local team, and from there I just sort of stayed with them through till I was 14, 15, and then joined Liverpool Academy. I think being a Liverpool girl growing up, it was always Steven Gerrard. I think the way he led the club and the passion he had for the club, and obviously the way he played was, had posters of him all over my wall, and he definitely inspired me. Growing up, towards the end, I really looked up to Farrah Williams. I think she was sort of a pioneer for the women's game, and the back end, especially when I joined Liverpool, she was at Liverpool, so she was definitely an inspiration for me. And I think now when you look at the younger generation, they've got a multitude of females to pick from, so that's really exciting. We're all looking forward to that first game, getting back in front of our fans. We've missed them over the past few months, so that'll be really exciting, and I'm sure we'll hear them loud. I remember the first few games they came back, how loud they are at home and away games. It is truly special, and they're the best fans in the league, so we love them. Thank you! I think it's building off the back of the Euros. It's really important that we sort of make a push to fill the stadiums and really get as much crowd as possible and get as many people involved and interested in the game, and continuing to grow the women's game.
So here you can see Neve speak so well. She talks past, present, future, support that she's received, and why. I'm very polished from a media perspective, and also big investment from the club and from Chelsea in regards to showcasing Neve to the world globally. So big club, big move. Neve then went on, won the Women's Super League a number of times, FA Cup winners. She's then had England senior representation. She managed to win major competitions, travelled to the Olympics. So huge successes, but within that, lots of in-flight adjustments. So we see that as a path from dual career as they progress through. But she's faced deselection, she's faced a number of injuries, but she's had that strength of character to continue and to progress and have that strong why. And then let's compare Ellie. So we're up to that stage of England under 21s. Ellie then, unfortunately, she suffers 3 reoccurring knee injuries, 3 different operations. She goes out on loan to Sheffield United. She does another loan into Blackburn. And all of this while studying full-time at Liverpool John Moores University. Then, while studying, while concentrating on what she could control, she then was given an unbelievable opportunity and a phenomenal achievement. She was chosen out of thousands of applications to become a specialised trainee cardiac healthcare scientist. It was full-time, it was very intensive, of course, and she's still completing it now. But she had that strong why. She'd studied hard, she'd had a real passion for this area, and she was given this opportunity. So then she has to make a decision at this stage. It was very difficult at this stage to continue being a full-time professional footballer in addition to being a cardiac healthcare scientist. So she chose to continue, and she retired from professional football. In the meantime, she's just about to graduate, so she's going to be a specialist cardiac nurse. Not many around the world globally that's achieved these successes. She's now going to go contribute back to society. In the meantime, she's now signed for Liverpool Feds, which is in the 3rd tier of the English system, still a really very high standard. However, if we think about her signing on, I couldn't put the picture up because it was so blurred. But when she signed on for Liverpool Feds, she had a shirt which was last season's, which was Treble XL. She was next to another teammate who had a training top and had a picture up. So you could see the differences in regards to the standards where they're currently playing. However, when we talk to both of these players, Niamh, they're both proud of each other, they both respect each other's journeys. And Niamh says, well, if you look at Ellie now, she has her next 30, 40 years mapped out. She has that real purpose. When you talk about the work that she does, she has that real passion for it as well. And then when Ellie looks at Niamh's journey, huge successes, going to World Cups. But the journeys are different, but still they are impacting and contributing back to society, back to sport, back to their communities. So a question, I suppose, for us to pause on, whether we are coaches, whether we are looking to set up our dual career models, parents, what is success? Feel free to put your hand up and to share, or just reflect for a couple of seconds and start to think about what does success mean within your roles, within your workplaces. When we look at those two, as a product of them being in our system, we want them to leave being more well-rounded people and contribute back to society. But the paths are never straight. This is something that I spoke about yesterday, so I decided to put this in. When Niamh visited, before she went to the World Cup, I'm part of a gym and I run a trustee at a charity. So Niamh, before she came, she brought a lot of signed shirts, and she was in the charity speaking to all of the different people, some of the most vulnerable groups in our community, and she's fantastic, speaking to everyone, bringing shirts. And my daughter, big football fan, so I brought her along, And just before she went to the World Cup, we bought the sticker books, the Panini sticker books. You guys have them too. So we thought it would be a really good opportunity. We buy all of the stickers, the packets, we open them up, and then maybe she might open it up herself and be able to see. So that was the goal. So anyway, she opens them up. She opens the packet. It's not her. She tidies the packet. She puts it in the bin. She opens the next packet. Not her. Tidies the rubbish. Goes over, puts it in the bin. While speaking to everyone, while giving everyone time, does the same again. We didn't find it. But what was a special moment, I said to my daughter, what about Neve, the visitor? She was like, oh, I can't believe she didn't get the sticker to be able to see herself. But it was a key coaching moment for myself as a parent, also as a coach, to say, every time she opened the packet, she put it in the garbage or the bin. She's leaving the place in a better place than when she found it. And from a sport perspective, you're leaving your shirt in a better place. Yeah? So we're always thinking, she was always thinking along those lines. So how she does anything is how she does everything. Always on purpose. And these high-performing athletes, they don't turn this on and they don't turn it off in general. So we have that confidence that Neve, as she progresses through her sports, her life, her career, that she's going to do well. So let's look at this. Here we can see the athletic talent development environment model. Now this is a simple model. And the reason I wanted to show you this was, as my mum would say, I can't throw bouquets at myself because the likes of Neve and the likes of Ellie, they're going to develop through their experiences that they've had before they came to us, they're going to be successful. But some of the questions that I have is, why do some of the athletes that are in our care, why do some flourish and why do some falter? And as a good start point and as a reference point, this is a model that I do return to. So simply, if we look at this, its structure and its components is made up of two levels, the micro and the macro, and two domains, athletic and non-athletic. And then we can see on the outer, it's past, present, and future. The athletes are placed in the center. So as an environment, within the environment, there's a need to try and understand the athlete within the environments that they operate in to best service them and the need from a dual career perspective. So we can see the daily interactions here with teammates, coaches, experts, the schools that they attend, the families that they have. Then we look at the microenvironment, the education system, the media. And on that outer micro environment, while they don't constrain the student athlete, they still affect them from the cultures within they access. And the cultures, we spoke yesterday about social media, and a quote that I thought of recently was from Mace, which was back in 1970, I believe it was. And he wrote, "Do not ask what is in your head, what your head is into." So you start to think about what are the influences from a cultural perspective. And then we look at the past, present, and future, and the theme through the talks from yesterday, and I'm sure going forward, then that illustrates the dynamic, ever-changing, fast-paced world. So all of these on the outside, understanding how it influences on culture. When we started, Nick was one of our first sports scholars that's here today, and social media was just being launched. So we start to think about those changes, how long that I've been doing this, how we act, how we engage, how we communicate with our athletes, and understanding their world before we start to put our templates towards them from a performance lifestyle perspective. This is a real simple one as well, a simple model. But the success of the athlete development model that we've seen previously is dependent on these components. And it's going to be, as I talk through this presentation, I'm going to be going back to this model at different stages. So the preconditions are just the deal from the sports scholarship perspective. What sports science support do they receive? What financial, what facilities are available? Secondly is the processes. So the support staff, the networking. So it's key here that there's someone from a dual career perspective coordinating this support, and that sport and that education are aware of the demands and that they're aware of the benefits of dual career. And then we can start to create these environments where those demands are coordinated and the messages and the information is not misleading. So they're not pushing and pulling from sport and academics. The philosophy sits in the middle. That's our anchor, that's our stability. We spoke yesterday about challenge and support. I'm also going to talk about challenging and supporting our dual career athletes, but also the staff. Above that is the student athlete's development in regard to understanding their identity as a student, as an athlete, and as a person. Below is the competencies. How do we develop these competencies within our student athletes? Because they're all arriving at different stages, different experiences. And then how do we measure the success of the dual career program? I'm going to refer back to this model as we progress through. Kate touched upon this yesterday, was the model from Villeman. And this again is really trying to understand the athlete and where they are when they arrive at the university. Now you can see here age group, athletic level, individual level, psychosocial level, academic vocation. And then the age groups generally as they progress through from the development to the mastery to then discontinuation. So while we can start to understand the age groups, but when they come into our model, when they come into our dual career program, where are they at? So from a sport perspective, let's look at Hannah Whelan. A story about Hannah Whelan. She's been in already 2 Olympics. She was at 1 Olympics while she was at John Moores. So we used to meet up every month. We'd sit down, we'd go through our goals, go through our academics. And she said, David, we need to meet, we need to talk. So I knew, because she was quite structured in her meetings, there was something here. So, something important that she wanted to talk about. It was leading up to her 3rd Olympics. Her boyfriend was also going to the Olympics. There was a big spotlight on it. I'd seen her training in her own environment. Could see the pressures that they were under. And she was seen as this real senior lead within that team. So when we went to meet, I was already thinking, what's it going to be? How can I help? What solutions am I going to bring? Is it injury? Has she had a fallout with the coach? So I'm starting to think of these things and the solutions before we meet. So she sits down, big smile on her face. David, sit down. So I'm figuring out who's the mentor, who's the mentee. And in general, I do learn a lot more from the athletes. And she said, I'm retiring. So I was like, is it because you're injured? Have you ever fallen out with the coach? Have you been deselected? She was like, none of the above. So I can already picture myself when I was saying these conversations and sitting down with her, and I was trying to think of all of these solutions for her. And when I look back now, I'm like, David, shut up. Listen to what she has to say. As I say to my kids, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so listen twice as much. But I was trying to be that hero. I was trying to give her solutions. I was trying to fix stuff that didn't need fixing. And she said, gymnastics has been good to me. I've travelled to places, I've played, I've competed in some of the biggest sporting events in the world. I've started coaching and I've found my purpose. And now with my body and the 2 Olympics that we've been through, it's my time. So she's dealt with sport under her own terms. She has that strength of character to be able to do that. And I knew at that moment that was going to be a key moment for me as a performance lifestyle advisor to listen. But the strength of character was remarkable for her to deal with sport in her own terms. We look at Neve. Got a quick video again. I'm going to show Neve, but we'll continue to go through. Annika Underwater, again, she was peaked really between that mid to late 20s. But while she was at John Moores, we have to understand about what type of support that we're going to offer her. So from a sports science perspective, she wasn't quite in that GB podium level. So she was accessing all of the sports science from John Moores. So she was strong. She had that confidence then when she went up to that GB level that she'd been in the gym. She had that confidence. And then when she went into the track, the technical side, the tactical side of the work, but then that took care of itself. So we were really able to add some value to these athletes through the sports science support services that we offered. Johnny, even further, he's a marathon runner. He came with being a good cross-country runner. He went to 5K, he was not quite fast enough, went then into 10K, really competitive. 10K is a really competitive event. And then eventually when he was in his late 20s, early 30s, he then went into marathon running. And then as a result, he's now starting to get his PBs. So what support do we offer these athletes at the right time to meet their need is critical.
LJMU is like world leading for sports science, so it's a great place to go and study and the opportunities there, but also the sports scholarship was second to none, probably in the country, and it allowed me to do both, and it sort of seemed that it was really supporting my football as well as academia, and it wasn't just, well, play football on the side and do your academics. It was very much dual career. The university as a whole, when you say you're a sports scholar, there is a big understanding of what that entails, and most lecturers are very good to sort of help you out, but obviously there's Dave McDermott as well, who heads up the scholarship programme, who acts as sort of the link between sports and academia, and the support you get around that in terms of missing lectures, getting them video recorded if you need it and stuff like that. Being in LJMU and having a degree, it does open doors for the future, and I'd never say, I do think I will go back to education eventually. Who knows what will happen, but I would like to, and obviously being at John Moores, it's a great place to start.
She did not know she was going to be a full-time professional footballer. She was still in the youth. So here, if we look at her from Neve's perspective, there was no need for an agent. She was reliant on her family to travel. She wasn't getting paid at this stage. Again, she didn't have the sports science support that you would from the professional group at the first team at that time. So she was accessing support and finding gaps for her to be able to develop as a performer. So this is the network that I've kind of drew up from a support staff. And you can see here straight away the amount of people that are involved. And also the life is a team sport. And we need people to help us for sure. So this is now starting to understand the identities where the athletes will weave in and out of, and what support we can start to offer. And this is something that I'd created, so it has no academic rigour, but I used it and I created it because as a performance lifestyle advisor, talk a lot about being a jack of all knowledge and having that network and that book where we can open doors for our athletes. And often, the performance lifestyle early career practitioners would say to me, oh, it's easy. It's easy for you because it's not what you know, but who you know. But I will push back and say, it's not who you know, but it's how you get to know them. And from a performance lifestyle advisor, to really put that athlete at the centre and to understand what support we can offer is critical. And I always find the orientation phase, so before the athlete arrives at John Moores University, is key. because we can ask questions as they're walking around and I'm showing them and the parents. They can ask questions, who's their role model? How did they get into sport? Who's their favourite coach? Who inspired them to be better? And we're starting to then paint a picture about this athlete. How they want to be led, how they want to be managed, what they look for in other people. So it's key, and then we can start to think about also who the stakeholders are, what sport they play. If it's swimming, for example, who's taking them to the swimming at 4 a.m. When they arrive at university, they're going to have new classmates, new roommates, new lecturers, new city, lots of things to take on board. And the more information we understand about that individual athlete, we can then start to tailor what the mentor network can look like, what support that they may need. And then beyond that, we look at what interventions from recording lectures. So for example, Neve had said about recording lectures if she wasn't able to attend. So a lot of the athletes, they do camps internationally. So we can record lectures. We've often changed methods of assignments. So if they're away and they're abroad, instead of doing a presentation as a group, for example, which was a recent one, we managed to substitute that for a written assignment, and then it was accepted, and then they were able to move on. Buddy systems, the more information we understand, how do we connect them with a buddy that may be needed, maybe similar sports, maybe a similar course. So again, we're just starting to build the picture about the athlete, and then before the inductions process starts, we're going to be able to move more smoothly through, and then understanding those stakeholders beyond that. And then this is the dual career, the performance pillars. These are the sports science services that we offer our dual career athletes. And it's important here when we talk about philosophy, we want to stretch and support them. And it's also where well-being meets performance. And this is for our staff as well as our athletes. And it's important here that we are meeting the athletes where they're at. Sure why that's true. So it's important from a physical point of view that we're doing the needs analysis, we're understanding their training history, we're testing them, we're programming and we're retesting them. We're periodizing these programs to make them peak at the right times within this sport. Nutrition. We spoke then recently about nutrition. What do they know before they arrive? You're arriving at John Moores University. You're rising within your dual career program. Have you ever cooked before? Are you being well looked after by your parents? Being too well looked after? What education, what support do you need? So yeah, from a performance perspective, but then also from a lifestyle perspective. And we also double up on some of the workshops. So for example, 2 nights ago, we'd done a nutrition workshop with our performance lifestyle advisor. So, new city, first time they're ever cooked. What food, where to go, location. It's grouping these performance services and the people together. So we have that shared language, we have that shared philosophy. Same with psychology and physiotherapy, coping strategies with dealing with injuries, protocols for injuries, from a physio point of view, and then from a psychology, grouping them together, having that coordinated approach. So this is an example here of our multidisciplinary team. So we have myself, and then we have Connor, who coordinates a lot of the support. Now when I showed Denise this diagram, she said, oh, it's to see a lot of familiar faces, it's good to see. And that's hopefully the environment that we create, that people don't want to leave. But also as well, all of these people, as they've progressed through, they were all student interns that have progressed through this model. So when we talk about care and support and career development, all of these people are critical to the support and the systems that we have within our dual career. So we must invest in them as interns, we must invest in them as people. And this is a snapshot. On the right hand side is some past, present and future athletes, and then on the left hand side is the number from last week. We had 275 athletes through the doors, and this is ranging from TAS athletes, our own dual career athletes, performance athletes from the university. We also look after Olympic and professional players that utilise our facilities. The PGMOL is the Premier League referees. So we have the Premier League referees that access our sports science services. Less said about them, the better. But they all contribute. They all contribute to the environment. They all look to give back. And it's really important for our university dual career athletes and early career practitioners to actually see some of these full-time professional athletes, their manner and approach to training, their manner and approach to life. And a funny story recently is we had one of the WSL players. She was doing an early morning recovery session she was recovering from an injury. So at 8 o'clock in the morning she walks in, dragging her knuckles along the floor, and she's moaning, "This is too early to do a session." And then in the corner, one of our more quieter athletes, the swimmer, and she just pipes up and says, "This is my second session of the day." So they start to talk. So they talk about what your programs look like, and then they start to talk about what injuries that they've faced, what challenges that they've had to overcome. And then, from a lifestyle perspective, your athletes are sharing stories with other athletes that they may not share with their own teams or their own support staff. So it's this the creation of the culture, being safe, being themselves. It's more than just a gym, it's more than just a built environment. And again, this is just a real quick snapshot of the emphasis and the support that we offer our young interns as they progress through. 24-week program, lots of quizzes, all the videos of all the exercises, lots of emphasis and a lot of support for developing that next cohort of, in this example, strength and conditioning coaches that come through. But the real important point for this, and I always jump into these sessions, is we get previous interns who are at some of the biggest global sporting organisations in the world. We have guys who are based all over Europe, all over America, all over Latin America, and that with some of the most high performance teams and clubs. And they dial in and they do quick Q&As with the next interns that are coming through. So they give them back based on the support that they've received as a young early career practitioner coming through. So again, they're all part of the culture, they're all components of the systems. And a real good example here is over the last 6 years we've had 143 graduates from the internship program. 120 graduates have stayed in the career of sport or education. 38 graduates from PhD to MPhil. 82 sports science or S&C related employability. And those UKSCA, CENAR, professionally accredited courses, and these are just a small example of some of the sport that they then go into. So again, that emphasis on supporting the interns to develop that next cohort of interns coming through that then go into professional sport, that then they give back to our dual career program and our athletes that are coming through as alumni. So why character? Character is something I'm fascinated with. And when we talk with our multidisciplinary team on why do some athletes continue within the sport, why do some athletes engage better than others, how do some become and reach the high levels of sport or vocation, and often the term is used as character. My question was also, what is character? What does it constitute? How do I identify it? Can it be enhanced? So I started the research. Simple research. Sky Sports, 9,000 times in 1 year, character was spoken about in regards to winning or losing, coming back from a challenge, coming back from adversity, is the character of the person. We talked about me, we talked about Ellie, we speak about the character. But again, what is it? What does it constitute? So I'm going to skip a couple of slides and we'll go straight into the research and some of my findings. And when I found the VIA Institute is three things. First, it's a place in America where this is housed. Second is a classification. So Professor Martin Seligman, Professor Peterson, they got 55 other social scientists and they went back 2,500 years and they captured philosophers, moral educators, psychologists, and they looked back and they identified 24 character strengths that were in all human capacities in all humans. And this language was universal. It was over generations, it was across religions. So now we can start to think about, okay, they've grouped it into 6 virtues and identified 24 character strengths. Subsequent to that, they've done a character strength test. So there's a psychometric test, and then your character strengths, your significant character strengths, will come to the top. Everyone's is different. We've all done a strengths test in this room. There's a uniqueness to each and every one of us. And then how can we now support? How can we really now reinforce, not comparing ourselves to others? And having that strength of character. I score highly in these areas. How can I then face my challenges with my superpowers? So, what we're able to do then from a character, the VIA Institute, is we look at this from a theoretical framework. So as a performance lifestyle advisor, how can I now go through this aware, explore, and apply model? So the aware section is, we do this test, the psychometric test. Now, I agree that doing one test does not identify who we are. It's ever changing, it's dynamic. One day we feel, and through experiences we may feel strongly in another character strength. However, from a performance lifestyle advisor perspective, from a nutrition, from S&C, we talk a lot about rapport building with athletes, conversation starters. So from an aware perspective, we have to be able to sit down with our athletes, we can identify their character strength. We ask them, when have they been at their best? Can we identify your character strengths which has allowed you to be at your best? So now we're starting to create this language, which is very, very important for them to then face challenges. We can ask them, when have they faced challenges in the past? How have they used their superpowers to overcome them? Now we can explore and connect these strengths for the future. So they can explore them from multiple different ways. For Ruth, who I'm going to speak about shortly, we looked at her family tree. So we looked at generations before Ruth, and we looked at what challenges that they had faced, what adversity they had faced, and what character strengths they had used to now give Ruth this platform to be who she is. And it's kind of reassuring when you map out your family tree and you look about all those generations that have gone before you. And then you also look at what the future and all those generations potentially is going to look like in the future, and the light is shining on you. And what's your legacy going to be? So it's reassuring, it's reaffirming, and Ruth's saying how it inspires her. Her light is on Ruth. And also is that all of those generations ahead of her, she doesn't have to sweat the small stuff. What's her priority? What's her legacy? How is she going to put her values in action? And then finally, how do we apply it? We're going to talk about it from a career development perspective. And now the character strengths, so we look at how we can use the science of character and how can that inform our well-being, our performance, and our career development program. Now, I've consciously left performance, lifestyle definitions and how it's delivered at this stage, because we often are trying to be the hero as a performance lifestyle advisor. If you think about what I spoke about with Hannah, I wanted to give her the solutions, I wanted to be that hero. And if we look here, we want to empower the athlete, we want to enable the athlete, we want to support them as a person. We must go some yards of understanding that person. If we go back to those academic, those frameworks and those models where the athletes are placed in the middle, we must understand them as people before we try and then put our emphasis on what path and what journey we believe that they should take. And then some of these here and how it's delivered, encouraging athletes to explore and manage their own personal and professional development within and outside of sport. Encourage you to develop as a confident and organised individual. So now if you think about all that golden information that we've got from our athletes, them at the best, how they've used their character strengths in the past, how they want to apply that, now we can start to think about how we can empower them and how we can enable them and have that confidence to be themselves. Now, I'm asked constantly to give workshops for a number of different themes. If you think about that high performance world, the complexities of high performance and managing those from an education, from a high performance, time management. Time management is critical. But again, I'm asked to go and deliver workshops to athletes I've never met before, in environments I don't really understand. So rather than helicoptering in and giving them statements, set goals, prioritize effectively, manage distractions, stop procrastinating, and then you leave, and they may stick to it for a couple of weeks, they fill out the forms, and then what happens? Do they stick to it? Now we're starting to understand their character and their character strengths. Has anyone heard of the rock, pebbles and sand scenario? Yeah? So, for those that don't, you fill the rocks up. A professor in America filled the rocks up in a jar and said, can you fill anything else in? He said no. And he put the pebbles in, and you see all the pebbles gone in, that's fine. Fit anything else in? No. And then he put the sand in. So what they started then to look at was the rocks are all of the big important things in their life, what it means to them, their family, their sport, their relationships, their siblings, spending time with these people, things or activities. The pebbles, some of the stuff that need doing at times, and the sand, the stuff that is always going to be there, that just fills the gaps. But then, if we are starting to understand that athlete, starting to understand their background and how they've arrived here and how we want to support them, and they're setting their goals based on their values, based on their character strengths, now we can start to look at what's urgent and what's not urgent, what's important and what's not important. So again, just that emphasis of spending time. In order to understand the athletes, we must spend time. We must walk a mile in their shoes before we start to try and influence or guide or support. My role as a performance lifestyle advisor is a curious inquirer and a respectful listener. They are the experts. The athletes are the experts on themselves. I am here to create this environment, to guide and support. But it must be co-constructed. They must buy into this. We want our athlete to be autonomous. We want our athlete to be resourceful. What's their why? And if we spend time to understand that in the longer term, they will develop. They will contribute back to society. Same with Neve, same with Ellie. Same with many of the athletes that we've worked with, many of the interns that we've worked with. their contribution back to society long after they leave your care, long after they leave your dual career program. So, if we pause here and we look at this as a scenario, briefly, this is part of the research that I'm gaining some consensus with other performance services. So say for example, we have a young man here who's on the scheme, football guy. Now, some of our interns, some of our early career practitioners, they talk about how do they bring these sessions to life more, because they learn the academics and then they coach, but are they understanding the person that they're coaching? Do they understand why they are turning up one day in certain moods and not in other days? Understanding their why and why they compete at this high level within sport. If we can start to understand what their character strengths is, how can that influence some of the sessions that we run? So these are some of the questions about rapport building, about conversation starters. So from a strength and conditioning perspective, if we look at Ben, who scores high in curiosity. Is there any strength and conditioning coaches in the room? 2 there. So I'll put you guys on the spot. Ben scores high in curiosity or perseverance or kindness. How could you bring your sessions to life to make sure that they are leading with their character strengths? Simple things to do just to bring these sessions to life for these athletes. They score high and curious. We can share this intelligence with our sports science multidisciplinary team to try and bring these sessions to life. Small, simple information to be able to connect with people, to build rapport, to have trust. It takes time, but we must see the world from their eyes. Perseverance. They may want to see, from a strength and conditioning perspective, their PBs, what they're working towards. They test, they retest, they program, they're getting better, they tick it off, they move to the next, they tick it off. They may want to see, visually see. You can see that perseverance. We've had kindness, athletes that score high in kindness. From a physio perspective, they've had similar injuries, they share those experiences. They jump on the bike with them. They're feeling down because they're not able to train. And the other athlete will jump on the bike and sit with them for half an hour and just chat. Again, you just lead them with their own character strengths. And from a career development perspective, research which we're involved with TAS looked at key competencies for dual career programs. Those competencies were highly, very comparable to the 24 character strengths which was listed before. So when we've done some consensus with graduate employers, what do they look for? First thing they would say is recruitment is a big issue. Everyone's got the same CV. Everyone works well as a team. Everyone works well as an individual. We all have bullet points on a CV. What's their story? What's your story? How are you conveying those messages? What is your character strengths? How have you put your character strengths and values in action? So this storied approach is key. So it's very difficult from a recruitment perspective. Athlete career employability transitions. We all know as athletes that there's lots of transferable skills from a leadership perspective, from working hard, from being uncomfortable. However, if we look at it as an athlete, we're very self-centered. Because I want the best nutrition, I want the best strength and conditioning coach, I want the best sports scientist, I want the best coach, I want to be as high performing as I can. And then suddenly we're shifting that focus to being client-centered. There's not a direct correlation there, is there? So they need time to be able to have and craft these experiences as performance lifestyle advisors. How can we showcase them failing at something? How can we showcase them learning, facing challenges outside of sport to develop them as people in a safe environment? And then we created something which I stole from a wellbeing program during COVID, and we worked with the athletes in regard to a community project. So they had to serve someone other than themselves. and some of them would raise money for a charity that they felt strongly about. Some of them would shine a light on a social agenda issue which they felt strongly about. And when, at the end of the program, one of the athletes said, I feel like I've got more to give, more to say, and more to do. So from an identity perspective, they are now working outside of their athletic domains to broaden that identity. And there's transitions, obviously, we spoke about yesterday, and the importance of life after sport, the importance of career development. And when the athletes would talk about their character strengths and how they helped someone else, their eyes would light up. They told their story about how they're helping others. And as an employee, this is beyond sport, so we start to really understand what type of person that they are. When we go back, the issue we have, also coupled with this, is the CVs. So we had a few focus group meetings. How can we bring the CV to life? So if we click on this as a platform, our goal was to try and create this platform, something I'm really excited and we're really proud of. So if we click on this website here, we can see this has been co-constructed with Ruth. So again, I can't throw bouquets at myself. Ruth has gone through the pictures, the colour schemes. She's told her story. She's told her story through sport. She's told her story through contribution back to community, back to society. This is a novel way of using the science of character to develop them as people, to then tell a story about their future. So now as employees, we start to understand them as people. So when we click on this website, we are again bringing these scenarios to life. So we can showcase exactly what Ruth, what her head is into, what her values are in action. And we've done this through videos. So we've been able to record some of these videos. We've been able to really start to focus with Ruth. How does she want to be remembered? What is her legacy? When we looked at those family trees, and she's really proud of being an athlete. If we go down, we can see here, she's a GB athlete, an advocate for diversity within sport. That was a really good starting point for us. Now we can see some of the career highlights. She's still currently in the Olympic program. About me, she talks about being proud of being from Liverpool, British Malawian, dual citizenship. How she got into shooting. She wasn't the best athlete. How the sport was, she got given this opportunity. So now her ambitions, her drives, her passions, she's going to use her character strengths to then break down these barriers for future young people who look like Ruth, to give them opportunities to get into sport and to have some of these fantastic experiences that she's had. If we continue to go down. As a result of this, within sport, we find often she has to travel. And if you're not at that top level, you have to fund it yourself. And we managed to then, as an exercise, she had some of these already, but we got some new sponsors because she was able to align herself philosophically with some of those values of other companies, and then we were able to approach them, and then she's got funding to continue to stay in sport. We go down again. These are some of the pictures which she chose. Her as an athlete. And then giving back to her school, a leadership program which she was involved with. If we go down again, we look at something to say, shining a light on a social agenda issue which she feels passionate about. So she's telling a story. She managed to get on the BBC to talk about microaggressions. We go down again, we won't click on that, we'll keep going through. Black History Month. She managed to get onto Sky Sports and BBC. This was all created by Ruth. She spoke about the content. I was the curious inquirer, the respectful listener. And she drove this, and we supported her. We created this ecosystem of a business, which is also linked with an athlete, creating these platforms for athletes. So she didn't have to do this all herself. Our athletes are time poor. We spoke about the complexities of dual careers with sport and education and personal growth and family and friends, and we remembered all of these diagrams which we've been going through. So we then, and me as a dual career lead, how can I create these ecosystems to support it? We go back to the image that we have with the black book, with the network. Yeah, it's not who you know, it's how you get to know them. Building that jack of all knowledge as a performance lifestyle advisor, as a dual career lead, to support them to then achieve some of these great things. If we go down again, something to give them back to someone else from a well-being perspective. It's a beautiful thing to be able to do. But again, she's telling her story. So when she gets in front of employees, she's saying about how she serves someone else, how she's give back. So she's gone from being an athlete to self-centered, when we should be, because we want the best, to now being more client-faced and then giving back. In an ever-changing world, within your careers, economics changes, social media, all the things that are fast-paced and ever-changing. She can tell a story which can be translated and related to many other scenarios. We go down to the bottom. And finally, I asked her coach, who's head of GB, I said, please give a reference for Ruth. And if you just go down to the bottom, you'll go back up to the top. We won't click on it. But Mike, as I asked him to give a reference, he told a story about Ruth. In this room, we've probably filled out 1,000 CVs, 1,000 references, for people that we've known. And all of the references may be quite similar. I try and do my best to make it specific to the students, to the athletes that we're working with. But not once have I wrote a story that actually represents them as people, to give that employer an understanding about what type of person that they are. As soon as we put a camera in front of someone, they told a story about Ruth's kindness. They told a story about her perseverance in performance. So again, we're bringing it to life. We're bringing it to life from a practitioner, trying to build rapport. We're bringing this to life from an employee looking to recruit. Again, something remarkable which she created by herself. And as a performance lifestyle advisor, a curious inquirer, a respectful listener, and it was co-constructed with Ruth. Something she's really proud of. This is what she scores high in: curiosity, humility, and love. And she's able to showcase that. Super quick story. When does career development start? It can start at any age. My daughter, I'd taken her to a boxing event. It was at the arena, so it's a huge international event. And I managed to get some of our students to interview some of the boxers. And my daughter, leading up to it, Anthony Crowley, you can see there, who's a huge Man United season ticket holder. The week before, we beat them 7-0. Her boxer here, Rhiannon, she was 7-0 on her wins. So my daughter, I said, if you get a chance, would you like to interview the boxer? She said, yeah. She's got a really interesting media. So she wrote down her questions. I didn't know what she was going to ask. I pushed her in front of her and asked the questions. So she asked some questions and they went down and they were very good with her. And then Anthony Crowley came over and she said, hey Anthony. He said, yeah. He said, you must be really looking forward to Rhiannon winning on Saturday. And he said, yeah. And she said, because you must be sick of seeing 7-0 everywhere you look. And it was a great moment. She started to laugh. But we captured that information. So if you think about Ruth and this platform that we've created for her, we have social media, but it's all mixed up and it's all messy. If we can start to create these platforms which tell a story about our athletes, we can start at 11 years of age like my daughter has. So some of these findings and summary from a dual career leadership, environment is key. It's real understanding that you need to seek to understand the individual within that environment. One size fits none. It's not rinse and repeat. If we look back at our multidisciplinary team, we meet them where they're at, physically, mentally, and socially, lifestyle. establish and maintain that philosophy. We said in the opening story about the warmth of the people, the warmth of the Maltese people. That's the culture, that's your stability, that's your anchor. You need to be more than words on a wall. How we live in our values, how we support our own staff and athletes, and what is success. Creating these meaningful experiences for our athletes to tell a story, learn from doing, failure, first attempt in learning. Don't run away from failure, approach it. If our child, if our athlete fails at something, approach it, embrace it. That's where so many of the real good coaching moments are at. Boxing coach that I was with the other day, he said, England boxer, said, what's your results? He said, I had 15 wins and 2 learnings. I said afterwards, what does he mean by learnings? He said, the language that we use is important. If it's a loss, it's a loss. If we learn from it, it's not a loss. Give time to build rapport, walk a mile in their shoes. Don't just helicopter in and give it time management and then leave and expect that they're all going to be good and tick the box. Walk a mile in their shoes, understand them and people and the environment that they operate in. People will rise to the challenge if it's their challenge. Think of those academic models that I showed. They must understand what the challenge is, at what stage of their career, socially, physically. We can't just give them an S&C program based on an international player in the same age or the same position. Where are they at? How do we develop them? Physically, mentally, socially. Good coaches change games, great coaches change lives. Great one to finish on. We've all had a coach, a person in our life that has revealed something in us that we didn't know was there and give us that belief to believe in ourselves. And everyone in the room is here for a reason. We're all working potentially with young people, we're developing people. Can we be that person to develop someone else, to give that belief? I hope you've got an insight into the high performance dual career world at John Moores University. I hope you've got some of an understanding about the science of character and as an example to be able to use that. I would say it's not all encompassing. There's multiple different interventions to be able to use. That's one that we've used and something that we're really proud of. So thank you again for your time and thank you for the invite.